Hello, my name is Rebecca Crawford, and I am an archive specialist at the National Archives and Records Administration.
And I'm Katherine Vollen, and I am also an archives specialist at the National Archives and Records Administration. And today we're going to be looking at immigration records.
Part of our immigration records, we have records of the U.S. Customs Service that are part of Record Group 36. They're going to cover the time period 1820 to 1890, with the exception of Philadelphia, which will start in 1800. We will also look at some examples from the Immigration and Naturalization Service, which are part of Record Group 85. They're going to range from 1891 to 1957. On the screen, you'll see a list of some of the major ports that we have relating to immigration. Within those ports, you'll see records for the Port of Philadelphia, which range from 1800 to 1952, for the Port of New York from 1820 to 1957, Baltimore for 1820 to 1957, New Orleans from 1820 to 1952, and San Francisco from 1882 to 1957. We also have some records for our border crossings here at the National Archives. So if your ancestors crossed the border from Canada into the United States, you're going to look at the Port of St. Albans. Those records will start in 1895 and go through 1954. If you have an immigrant ancestor that came from the border from Mexico, then you're going to be looking at the Mexican border crossings. Those records will start about 1903 and run to about 1955.
Now, the type of information that you can find in the immigration records is going to vary over time, but all of the immigration records, both customs and the INS records, will include the name of the ship, the name of the ship's master, the port of arrival and embarkation, and also the date of departure and the date of arrival. But some of the basic information the kind of thing that you'll be looking for when you're doing genealogy research. The early customs records are going to include the name of the individual, their age, their occupation, country of origin, and destination. Now, as I said, these vary, and they're going to be different over time. And this is a really early record into Philadelphia. This is the Brig experiment coming in 1809. And if you take a look, you see all the damage. You've got holes. You've got tape, it looks like. Record is not in good shape. These were actually stored on the docks before they were turned over to us, so they were exposed to water, other elements, vermin, rats could get at these things. So we're lucky we actually have what we do have. But this is actually mostly a cargo list. So up here this is all cargo, and the passengers are down at the bottom. So you'll see there are 14 boxes of linen, 1 chest of glass, 1 box of sealing wax. And for passengers, we have an example of Henry Vogt and his wife and 3 children. Now, the rest of the family's names are not listed. So all we know is Henry Vogt had a wife, and he had 3 children that came with him. We don't know their names. But we do know that they were carrying 1 trunk and some number of bags of bedding. The number isn't there. By 1846, we see a little more information. This is the Brig Nautilus arriving in New Orleans in 1846. There is no cargo listed on this, but this is the entire passenger list. There are only 7 things listed. We have a man named Gaultier, no first name listed, but he is 36 years old. He's a clergyman from France, and he is intending to settle in the United States. Now, there's a column over on the right side of the page that says number that have died on the voyage. And when you start seeing columns with questions like that, you know that the government is trying to track something. And in this case, they're trying to track how many people died on the voyage. And we see that 1 person died, and he's listed down here. Matthew, again, I don't know if this is his first name or his last name, but he died during the passage. And this is 1886, the Nova Scotian arriving in Baltimore. And this is a longer manifest. This is actually page 6 of a 6-page manifest. So you can see with these numbers down here, there were 221 passengers. And in this case, we get the individual's name, their age, their sex, their occupation, the country they're coming from, state or town to which they're going, and Again, it asks if anybody died on the voyage, and it also asks if they were, what section of the ship they were in. And these people were divided into female steerage and male steerage. This entire ship seemed to be in steerage. So we see here Mary Callahan. She was 17 years old. She was a domestic servant from Ireland, and she was going to Chicago, Illinois. And now I mentioned again, we had the question, did anybody die on the voyage? Down here we have Maria and Pete Howson or Polson. It actually says Howson or Polson. Since this information was taken down orally, it's very possible that the person providing the information had an accent and the person taking it down just couldn't understand if it was Howson or Polson. So they wrote both. They were both born at sea on August 10th, and on August 12th, Maria died, and Pete died on August 17th. So they were less than a week old, and they both died.
Now we've looked at what we can find on the earlier passenger manifests. On the later passenger manifests, you're going to get more information. With these records, you can get the name of the individual, names of any traveling companions, the age and personal description of each person traveling, their occupation, their last residence, the name and address of relatives they are going to join, whether they can read or write, the amount of money they are carrying, and you can also find out whether or not they were a polygamist or an anarchist. This is an example of a passenger list for the SS Majestic, which arrived into the Port of New York on March 27, 1923. As you can see, this manifest is nicely typed. A lot of the manifests will not be and are very difficult to read. But you'll also notice that at the top of this list, it is called the list of United States citizens. And sometimes you will see that the lists will be separate. So sometimes you'll have a list of aliens, sometimes you'll have a list of citizens, sometimes they'll be mingled in together. On this particular list, you have the names of each passenger along with their age, their sex, their marital status, where they were living. You also have a column that's filled in with a bunch of handwritten notations. These are going to be the passport numbers for each of these individuals. So it could lead you to another source of information that we have at the National Archives. If you look towards the bottom of the list, you'll see Seth Van Slars. He's 21 years old. He is a male. He is married. He has passport number 241469, and his address is listed as TC and Son, New York. And upon further investigation, it seems that TC Son in New York is actually the name of a travel agency.
Thomas Cook and Son.
This passenger list here is for the SS Rotterdam, which arrived into New York City on August 17, 1921. This one, instead of being a list of U.S. citizens, it's actually a list of aliens, and it tells you that at the very top of the page. And it gives you a whole lot of information about the passengers. Not only do you have page 1, but you're going to have a second page to this manifest, which will give you even more information about each passenger. One of the people on board this ship is Jacob Berger. He's 25 years old. He is married. He is a butcher. He can read and he can write. He was born in Rotterdam, and his last permanent residence is in New Jersey. It also gives you the address of his father, who still lives in Rotterdam. Tells you that his final destination is back to New Jersey. He paid his passage by workaway, which means that he worked on board the ship in order to pay his passage. He is carrying $25. It gives you the name of his wife, Mrs. Berger, and her address in New Jersey. And it also gives you a personal description of Jacob Berger. So from the manifest, we learn that he is 5'5" with blue eyes. And we also learn that, unfortunately, he is not a polygamist or an anarchist. So you can see that the later immigration list will give you a wide source and a wide variety of different information.
I want to point out two things about this list. One, Rebecca says, unfortunately, he is not a polygamist or an anarchist because no one ever says yes. They wouldn't be allowed into the country if they admitted to that. But if you ever find one that says says yes, they are a polygamist or an anarchist, please let us know, because we've been looking for these. And the second thing I want to point out is we were giving this lecture at one of our genealogy fairs, and a gentleman in the front row recognized this family, and Mrs. Berger's name is apparently Edna, according to this researcher. I have no way to verify this, but he told us that.
Moving on. Now we have the passenger manifest of the SS New Amsterdam, which arrived into New York on June 11th, 1953. Because this is one of the later manifests, you'll notice that it does not give as much information about the individuals as the earlier manifests do. On this manifest, you have John and Augusta Alexander. John was born in New York. Augusta was born in Germany. And you find the amount of luggage that they're traveling with. They have 5 suitcases, 1 trunk, 1 box, and 2 packages. Now, one of the things that you want to take note on this manifest is that under the passport number, they both have the same number. So it's quite possible that they are a married couple, even though it does not specify this on the manifest.
Now I want to talk about availability of these records. All of the examples we just showed you are available on microfilm at the National Archives building and at some of our regional facilities. Their holdings will vary. So it's a good idea to check ahead before you visit. Most of these records have been digitized and are available on Ancestry.com, and we provide access at all of our facilities free of charge. Some of the records, the New York records for 1892 to 1924, are available at ellisisland.org. And castlegarden.org has a searchable database but no images of the New York arrival records between 1820 and 1913. And of course, you can always submit a mail order request, and you can download a mail order form at www.archives.gov. And if you have any further questions, please feel free to contact us. Our general email is inquire@nara.gov.